Welcome everyone, and thank you for attending the Children's Services Council of Leon County's invitation to negotiate informational session. We will be discussing the recently released ITN for capacity building for competitive application assistance. I'd like to introduce you to our Executive Director, Ms. Sika Rose Green.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this informational session. As Holly said, we are in the process of looking to build relationships with organizations to help with capacity building for our competitive application assistance. You probably have been following the Children's Services Council of Leon County, and you know that we did complete one procurement this past summer. We're going to be very anxious to release those results if you were not on our last meeting, but considering we did that in a very fast and furious way, we are very pleased with the results of that procurement. That being said, it has always been our intent to help providers, organizations in our community be ready to apply for procurements that we release for investment in outcomes that we would like to achieve in accordance with our needs assessment. And so that is the purpose of this ITN, this invitation to negotiate, to develop and create partnerships and relationships with one or more organizations to help us work with our provider community, be it nonprofits or even businesses or individuals. So with that, again, just thank you in helping us achieve this mission. And so before I turn it back over to Holly, just a couple of things that we like to go over prior to starting any of our sessions. So this is just a reminder of our priority areas: success in school and life, healthy children, youth, and families, stable and nurturing families and community. Next slide. And so we start every presentation this way. This is our mantra, and it is our theory of change, so that it is very clear what the goal of the CSC of Leon County is. So we are going to be investing in our community through our 3 priority areas that I just read and the domains underneath, and you can see those there. And we're going to create an impact using the areas you see there in the middle. And so what we are currently doing is looking at those areas as, or categories, as we like to say, as prioritized by our council to determine how we move forward and in what order we start the community investment process. Most importantly, we have to assess our impact and ensure that our providers are accountable and that they are adhering to our data standards, because that is how we know whether we are making an impact or whether we need to switch and change course. And so you'll see those areas that coincide with our key outcome measures that we have discussed previous times and are available on our website. And then lastly, the goal is to really have all of our children and youth in Leon County socially, emotionally, and physically equipped to be able to achieve success, or as I like to quote Cornel West, achieve their greatness as defined by them, and giving them the tools to do that. So in essence, reach their full potential. So with that, I will turn it back over to Holly, who will go through the ITN. We will have the opportunity for questions at the end, and you can also feel free to put any questions, comments, concerns in the chat, and we will address those as well. So thank you so much for joining us. And Holly, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Sika. Before we leave this slide, one thing that I like to draw attention to, the underpinnings for this particular invitation to negotiate, is some of our value statements that our council has adopted. You'll see them kind of up here in the circles going around our little logo there. The ones I really want to point out right now are our goals to be inclusive, equitable, and collaborative. And part of that is why we're doing this process. As Sika mentioned, we held our first procurement process where we were making community investments this past summer. We had close to 60 applicants, but we were only able to fund a certain amount of those. And in doing so, what some conversations occurred were not all the applications, like the scoring guidelines for all of them were pretty all over the map. And what we recognized is that we want to make sure that any providers that are out there in the community that are interested in this space, that want to apply for some of our competitive funding in the future, that they have as equal of a playing ground as, say, some of the larger community-based organizations that maybe have historically been more equipped with grant writers or data people or evaluation services. One of our goals is to absolutely continue to be data driven, but what can we do to help the entire community be eligible to participate in receiving those funding? So that's really truly the underpinning of this particular invitation to negotiate. As Sika said, we are looking for a partner and or partners to do very specific things. So unlike other particular procurements that you might have written for, in the case of this invitation to negotiate, a service provider can write for one or both of the service lines. If you feel that you have the minimum qualifications and a scope of service proposal that really might shine for for service line A, we encourage you to apply for that one. Same thing with B. You do not have to apply for both of them. And so as you write and go through the invitation to negotiate, you'll determine or you'll see how that is a little bit different. I am going to pause for just a moment and ask everyone to please have your phones on mute if you do not mind, just so that we can not have any other additional noise. So thank you so much. If you're able to do that, that would be great. In fact, give me one moment and I'm going to ask Jacinta, our colleague, if she can help go through and just help keep them muted. That would be great. Thanks, Jacinta. So our service lines that we are seeking for this particular procurement is A, technical assistance for grant seekers. So this is to provide TA and to develop TA plans to potential applicants for community funding to meet the specific expectations of any of our funding solicitations. So that is what we are specifically looking for. So as we develop and publish our community investment procurements, whether it's for summer funding, innovative funding, priority funding, for this particular grant, it'll be specific for our summer bridge program and any of our priority funding solicitations. Later in the presentation, we'll go over what the timeline for that currently looks like, and whoever we end up partnering with may have to adjust based on council decisions. So that is the first one. So this particular technical assistance is to work hand in hand with our team that you'll see here, all with this background that we're sharing, to walk through the grant applications when they become available. And then while it's open, being able to provide that technical assistance specifically to anyone and everyone who might want to apply, paying specific attention to representation of who you're reaching out to. Most of our work will prioritize funding into very specific neighborhoods as indicated from our needs assessment, and that will be very clear in the solicitation process. The other thing that will be required for any of these funding applications moving forward is a very strong evaluation measure. And we understood that this past summer bridge program, we didn't have a lot of emphasis on that because it was done very quickly and it was intended in a very short turnaround time. But as we move forward, you'll see the scope of the funding opportunities become very narrowed. And so what we're looking for is a partner who can help those community providers understand where they fit in those priority areas that Ms. Green just recently went over, and to make sure that what they're designing or proposing fits specifically in that, and that they have the capacity to do the evaluation work that will be required for all community investment solicitations moving forward. The second service line for this particular ITN is communities of practice for unselected applicants. So this was something that was specifically requested after our summer program, that for all of those entities who had some really great ideas, but maybe just didn't score high enough to be considered for funding in this next round, is let's pull those together. So we did a small version of this where we were able to meet one-on-one with all of those individuals who were not selected for funding and do some coaching and kind of just some general conversations about what the individuals who were funded maybe had stronger than those that were not funded. So that's specifically what we're looking for, is a partner who's going to work specifically with those not funded by CSC. Those individuals who receive funding from CSC will still have a program accountability and a coach and access to all of us to make sure that they're meeting their expectations. But this service line is specifically to help children's service providers in Leon County that applied but were unsuccessful, so that next time round their scores could be higher. So those are the two very specific service lines that we are looking for a community partner to assist us with. Now I'm going to review the procurement and walk through it and kind of go over a couple of things that will be added as addendums, and then just going through your, if you are a potential applicant, what you might want to do in terms of sharing out this information or developing your response, when they're due by, and all of the kind of the rules and procedures that go with it. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen and pull up a second screen. And that is, there we go, the actual procurement itself. I'm going to start with the timeline of events, just because it, in my opinion, is the best way to understand what we're working with. We did release the procurement and posted it publicly this past Friday, and are hosting the informational webinar today, October 24th. This session is being recorded. It's actually being live streamed right now on our YouTube channel, and will be accessible. And on our website under announcements, where we post the ITN, you'll actually see right now it says join us for this particular event. This afternoon that will switch and say you can access the recording on by clicking this link. So anybody and everybody has access to it. We do accept questions. All questions must be submitted in written format. So earlier when Ms. Green said that we will take questions at the end of this session, we do ask that you record, that you write them down in the chat. Even if you'd like to ask a verbal question, that's perfectly fine, but it does have to be documented in the chat. And so that we're able to include that in the final list of questions. For anyone who is listening to this session right now that's not here with us live, you have until November 10th, noon on November 10th, to submit any questions that you might have. And those of you who are with us live right now, this is not your only chance to submit questions. So if you have additional questions, or you're getting through the procurement and you're like, oh, what do they mean by this or this or this? You can submit those questions to the procurement officer. That's me, procurement@cscleon.org. It's also listed on the cover page of the ITN of where you can submit those questions to. Our team will then take all of those questions and put them in a format and publish them on our website immediately below where that draft RFP is posted on that announcements page on our website. So all the questions that get asked and answered will be accessible to anybody and everybody who is interested in responding to this particular procurement opportunity. Those will be posted by 5 p.m. on November 15th on the website. We do try to send out and let folks know that it has been updated, especially if you submit questions. You will receive a confirmation email that your question was received. Now, I will say that there are cases where questions are posed but may not be in the correct format, and so we do reserve the right to not answer a question. If that happens, you will be notified. The next thing I'll share is that the due date for everything is Monday, November 28th by 12 p.m. We will do what is called a public opening, where our team comes together and we literally open every response that has been submitted in a live streamed event. This is typically held at our legal offices. It will be publicly noticed, and so that if you would like to join us in person, you are more than welcome to. There are no council members present at the public opening, and there's no decisions being made. If anyone has ever watched our YouTube channel before, you might have seen that it's about a 5-minute process where all it is we open and we determine and we read out everybody who has submitted a response to the particular procurement opportunity. We will then go into a 2-part evaluation phase where we will spend the first time doing evaluation with one particular team. They will come together in a public meeting on just the morning of December 8th, and they will then shortlist or rank through their scoring those that will advance to the next phase, which is called the negotiation phase. So everyone who submits a response may not advance to the negotiation phase. They will create their ranked list for both service lines. So if your proposal makes both of them, you may be invited to make 2 proposals. If you only submit a service line for one or another, you may be invited to only make a presentation for one of those. And that's where you'll see on here that negotiation phase. Those are where we will get together in a virtual setting and allow the individual who has submitted the proposal to talk through their proposal. We will provide a presentation guideline to let you know specifically what we're looking for in that presentation should you be selected to move forward. At the conclusion of that, one or multiple individuals will be invited to submit what is called a best and final offer. So this is where through that negotiation presentation that we'll ask questions back and forth with you to kind of clarify and hone in, and then we'll ask you to submit a best and final offer based on those discussions. Now, I do want to let everybody know that the negotiation phase, those meetings that are held, are protected by the public records exemption, meaning that those sessions will not be publicly broadcast. They will, however, be recorded, and when the procurement session concludes and an award is recommended and finalized, then those sessions will become a part of the public record. But just want to let you know that the individual negotiations between a respondent to this particular ITN and our team and negotiation team will be held in the shade, is how it's called. All of this is spelled out as well in the full procurement packet that we're going through right now. On December 15th, that negotiation team will have a public meeting to formally discuss the final best and final offers that they received and make that reward recommendation to the Children's Services full governing council immediately following that session. So that will be December 15th is when we anticipate our governing council to make a selection based on the work of both the evaluation team and the negotiation team. That letter will be communicated to all respondents on by no later than December 16th. So you'll receive that. But all of those public meetings, including the ones with the governing council, are open to the public and live streamed on our YouTube channel. We anticipate in January finalizing that contract to make that award at our January meeting with an expected start date with our partner and or partners on February 1st to begin the work of these service lines. In terms of what we want you to submit, I'm going to go to response format and contents. A cover letter, being very specific in the cover letter, what you are applying for in terms of service line A, B, or A and B. And this is where we also want you to indicate your minimum experience within those particular service lines. So we are looking for a partner who has experience in one or both of those. So please ensure that that is included in your cover letter. And then we'll also need you to include in that ITN Form A. And this is, I just want to say, in the current RFP that is on the website, it is missing Form A. And so that will be added as an addendum at the conclusion of today's call. It's the same Form A that we've used in multiple procurements that we have out there. It just did not get attached into that RFP, folded into that RFP. So that's our apologies, and want to let everyone know as an addendum, it will be posted on the website immediately following this session. That's just your disclosures and affirmation statement. Please note that if you do not include Form A in your response, your whole response will be deemed unresponsive and it will not move to the evaluation phase. So I just want to state that again, is that Form A is required to be included right behind your cover letter. And if it is not included, you will be deemed unresponsive. And tab B is where we seek your background, experience, and references. We are asking for reference letters and not just contact details for people who could provide references. So that is a change that we have done from previous procurements if you've been engaged with us before. Then we are seeking under tab C, your proposal for service line 1. If you're not including a particular service line in your proposal, we still ask that you include a tab C and D, and then just insert a page that says the name of your organization is not proposing services for this capacity building service. Otherwise, we expect all of the pieces to be there. Same thing for service line 2. Then this should be 150. I do apologize. I will make sure that this gets edited. We have allocated up to 150,000 over 2 years to achieve the ITN goals. And we have an estimate for each of the capacity building services provided right there. We are asking that for each line that you are doing, that you include 2 separate budgets. So should your proposal for service line 1 advance and your proposal for service line 2 not advance, we're still able to do that in a process. The last piece that we'll go over is that the evaluation of responses will be conducted separately, meaning that your whole proposal will not have a score for everything together, but rather each service line will receive a separate score so that we're able to weigh and discuss each service line separately. What you'll see here is that price is not included as one of the scored evaluation components or criteria. And that is because we are looking for our best value analysis. And so we're not scoring that proposed pricing, but rather when it's combined, we'll be looking at all the other pieces. Finally, I went through the timeline of the responses. I'm going to fast forward down to the draft statement of work, which would be in essence the attachment for your contract. And this goes into a little bit more detail of what we are looking for within each service line. And so you read through that, and that's what you should mirror your proposal for each service line on. And then you'll see here the deliverables again for each of those service lines, what we're looking for specifically to have from each of them. So that should be referenced in each of your proposals. And then finally, we'll get down to this timeline. So this timeline here is about the funding cycles that will be associated with both of the service lines. So we anticipate releasing the summer 2023 RFA for community investment bridge funding either late February or early March. And so what that means in terms of preparation dates is that's when people are actually working on the actual grant application itself, with an anticipated start date of May 15th, 2023. For priority funding cycle A in its current format, we are also looking to release that procurement in March. And again, that preparation for the actual grant applicants would be March, between March and June. And then in terms of finalizing the contracts and all of that, with an anticipated start date of July 1st, 2023. And this first round will be a 15-month contract with service renewals up to 2 additional years. Then our priority funding cycle 2, you'll kind of see that kind of follows the same thing, with a service start date for that particular one in October. And then we'll kind of feed it through, and we'll have summer for 2024 and the summer funding cycle 3 for the following year, with a start date of October 1st, 2024. We are anticipating that whatever service provider and providers that we bring on in response to this ITN will be with us through each of these 5 funding cycles, again, for our summer bridge program and our priority funding cycle. Now, there will be other opportunities the CSC will publish for sharing or for other opportunities for funding that will be outside and a part of the capacity building scope of work. And those are for our innovative funding opportunities. There's going to be some sponsorship opportunities, and those will be published and made available to the public, but those will be outside of the scope of work for these particular capacity builders. The final thing is that we do have a proposed payment schedule. We do ask that when you're considering writing your proposal, if any of these timelines don't work, or you want to promote something, propose something different, that is part of what that negotiation phase is for. And that brings us to the conclusion of walking through the procurement. And we are able to open it up for questions specific for the procurement itself. And I do know that I saw at least a couple that came through. And the first one was, is this session being recorded? And the answer is yes, it is being recorded, and it is being live streamed directly onto our YouTube station and our YouTube channel. And then there was another question that came through that said, I don't see the third item, monthly training sessions. So I do want to address that. I believe Ms. Green also responded in the chat, but ultimately the Program Services Committee determined that the training would be separate and apart from this particular capacity building services. CSC Leon still intends to do regular training for children's service providers throughout its tenure of being a partner in the community, but for the purposes of this ITN, the partner that we're seeking are limited to those 2 service lines. And I will pause. I will pause there and turn it over to Sika.
Yeah, I was going to jump in. I believe I have to look back through, but we also, as a part of your submission, I believe we have somewhere in there where we're asking that you list your trainings. So you need to list your trainings, your workshops, your webinars, things that you offer. And just to add some context as to why the Program Services Committee wanted to pull that number 3 is because what we don't want to do is create duplicative processes. And so since we believe that most of the organizations and or people who will submit proposals for this ITN have a collection, a cadre, a curriculum of sorts that already exists. It would be more important to know what you currently are doing, have done, your expertise. And so I did want to provide even that further context as to why the final RTN looks a little different from the original draft that you may have reviewed. Thank you, Holly.
And I would like to apologize. The version I showed on the screen today was not the final version that's posted, which is why I noticed that that error in terms of the proposed pricing. So my apologies for that. I will make sure that everyone has the correct version of it in terms of proposed pricing and everything. Specifically, what Sika is what Ms. Green is referring to is that in terms of the topics under each of your service proposals, we actually want you to include a list of what you currently offer. And part of that is because we are trying to expand service provision and not, in essence, pay for things that already exist. And so I want to be super clear that that's why we want to know what is it that you already do and for who, and how would this be an expansion of that, and knowing that we were getting our target audience and needs met. With that, are there additional questions that anyone would like to pose? Well, we thank you for your time and being here. Remember that you can still submit any questions that you think of moving forward. Just please submit those to procurement@cscleon.org. Again, it's on the cover page of the ITN, and as long as they get submitted in time of that the deadline on November 10th, then they will be included. Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you, everyone.